Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my Phantom thoughts. All right, in this episode, I talk about morale in AD&D combats, and we have a fight going on in Tales of the Dragon Slayers. So let's get to it. So while recording the Tales of the Dragon Slayers segment that comes up later, I knew I was going to be using morale. And so I wanted to touch a little more on how I'm using AD&D morale as found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, initially, when I started using morale, I was only using the section under combat, but it does mention in that section that there is another section which I started dealing with as well, and it had some interesting effects on the way morale was utilized in combat. So it starts off with morale checks are used to determine the amount of will to fight in non-leader NPCs and can be applied both to henchmen and hirelings of character types and groups of intelligent opponent monsters. See also loyalty of henchmen and hirelings, obedience, and morale. Base unmodified morale score is 50%. Now, morale is a roll under mechanic, which kind of makes sense because the other major percentile based mechanic that you find in D&D is thief skills, and those are also roll under mechanics. Thief starts with very low scores that they have to meet or roll below, and then they go up as they go up in level, or depending on circumstances or their race, or sometimes their I think there's also some variability according to, I think there may be some dexterity bonuses. I may be misremembering that. Anyway, getting back to morale. So it says morale checks are made when faced by an obviously superior force, such as when in melee, when one force is hitting twice as often as the other, 25% of the party eliminated or slain, or individuals taking this much personal wound damage, leader unconscious, 50% of party eliminated or slain, leader slain or deserts. And it gives you kind of a percentages to check. For superior force, it just says check each round. And then for the others, it gives a plus percentage, 25% eliminated or slain plus 5%, leader unconscious plus 10%, and so on. So those are pluses for the die roll. Since you want to roll under, you're adding them to that check, that die roll. Then it lists other morale check modifiers. Each enemy deserting, minus 5%. So, of course, enemy deserting helps you, so it makes you go lower. Each enemy slain, minus 10%, inflicting casualties without receiving any, 20%. Each friend killed, plus 10%. Each casualties without receiving it, taking casualties without receiving any, which is miswritten. It should be taking casualties without giving any, plus 10%. Each friend deserting, plus 15%. Outnumbered, outclassed by more than 3-1, plus 20%. And then it talks about henchmen or associated creatures. Each creature take the base score and cast percentile dice, adjust the score for penalties or bonuses, and if the adjusted score is equal to or less than the loyalty score, morale is good. So there's your roll under mechanic there. And of course, you have with charisma, you have a potential loyalty bonus or deficit if you have a character with low charisma that has henchmen. And then it talks about monsters, intelligent monsters. Each monster has a base morale of 50%, plus 5% for each hit die above 1, plus 1% for each hit point above any hit die. So if you had a creature with 4 plus 1 hit dice, you'd have 50%, and then you have 3 hit die above 1, so that'd be plus 15, that'd be 65, and then you've got that plus 1 on it, so it'd be 66% morale, and then you'd adjust the die roll by all those adjustments that I mentioned earlier. And so those are all those adjustments are for the die roll. Now, if you go back up to the henchman section and you go to the section about loyalty, obedience, and morale of henchmen and hirelings, there are adjustments in there as well. But these, when you look at them, you can see that their effects are reversed. So one of them, for example, is training status. Untrained or peasant, minus 25%. Guards, officers, or major officials, plus 30%. And then there's a range in between those two. Those are the two biggest either way. But you're seeing a plus for something that's a positive result. And so you wouldn't want to apply a plus to your die roll. So that plus goes to the morale. And the same thing about pay or treasure. There's adjustments for that. The amount of discipline, the general treatment by their liege, loyalty-based modifiers for enlistment or association, length of enlistment, things like that. Racial preference, if you're using non-human troops, particularly the goblinoids and orcs and things like that, some of them don't get along, so there's adjustments there. Alignment factors, the differences in alignment, 1 place removed, 2 places removed, 3 places removed of liege or associated group. The alignment of a liege has an effect. And then, which is kind of odd because it's a set effect. It's not based on, your alignment compared to your liege's alignment. That's that previous adjustment. But lawful good is always plus 15%. Chaotic evil is always minus 20%. You would think that it would depend on the creature, but that's what it is. There's special considerations, like if you kill a faithful henchman, there's a minus 40% to morale for everybody else. If you ransom or rescued someone within a year, plus 15%, things of that nature. And then what I use mostly, I do usually when I'm doing it for a group of troops, I'll usually look at discipline and, where they stand on as far as training. And maybe length of enlistment, depending on what kind of a force it is. But the one I use the most is the situation modifiers. And these are liege, dead, or surrounded or outnumbered, which kind of stacks with one of the adjustments from the combat area. If your liege is dead, it's a plus 30% to the die roll. Well, under this, if your liege is dead, it's a minus 25% to morale. So that's a 55-point swing between what you're applying to the die roll and what you apply to the morale score. And the two most common, or the four most common, are each hit die or level, alive or dead, friends and foes. So enemy, it's plus 1, minus 1. So if for each enemy hit die alive, it's minus 1% to the morale for your side. And if it's for each enemy level dead, it's plus 1%. So there's a 2% swing for each enemy you kill to your morale score, in addition to the fact that when you kill an enemy, you get a minus 10% to your die roll. For friendly, it's plus 2% for each hit die or level for each one alive, but it's minus 3% for each level or dead, each die or level, hit die or level dead. So there's a 5% swing for that, in addition to a plus 10% to the die roll for the people you lost, the friends you lost. So that's a 15-point swing. So it's a 12-point swing, 12% for killing a foe. So you have some variability in the combination of the variability to your morale score and the variability to your die roll. You have a lot that can change, a lot of swings there can take in battle. If you end up killing a lot of enemies right away, you could demoralize them and just get them to surrender. And in fact, let's go back to the combat section and look at the effects of failing morale, because how you adjudicate that can be interesting as well. And I have my own way of doing it. So there's 4 potential levels of failure. If you fail by 1 to 15%, you fall back fighting. If you fail by 16% to 30%, disengage and retreat. 31 to 50% flee and panic. 51% or greater surrender. So this takes us to the melee section of, as we try to parse this, the melee section of combat, where it refers to breaking off from melee. At such time as any creature decides it can break off the engagement and flee the melee, To do so, however, allows the opponent a free attack or attack routine. Now, there's two things I see in this. Number one is specifically talking about to flee the attack, and we have a morale fail option for fleeing in panic. So I believe those two are related. It doesn't specifically say that in either section, but I believe those two are related. So if you roll flee and panic, this is what you're going to have. And when it talks about having an additional attack routine, a free attack or attack routine, I view that as potentially an additional attack routine. So if you had a melee combat, one side went, they killed enough creatures on the other side that other side rolled a morale, they failed, they rolled flee and panic, and they turned to run. Even though the previous group had already attacked that turn, they get to attack again. This is, to me, what in later versions of the game will be called an attack of opportunity. So you get to attack them as if you were attacking them from their backs, which is what you are. So I think that's what separates flee and panic from the two lesser results, the results that are above it in the chart that are not quite as stringent as fleeing and panic. So what's the difference between those other two, between disengaging and retreating and falling back fighting? So for this, I go back to a different section of the combat rules, closing to striking range, where it refers to this merely indicates that the party concerned is moving at base speed to engage the opponent. The base speed is inches, indicating tens or feet. All normal activity and bonuses are permitted when doing so. This action is typically taken when the opponent is over 1 inch distance, but not a long distance away. Play goes to the next round after this. So if you're more than 1 inch, 10 feet in an indoor setting, 10 yards in an outdoor setting, away from an opponent, you can't move and then attack because you're too far away, unless you charge, which is a different kind of movement, and you give up some armor class in order to charge and to close and attack at the same time. But if you're within an inch, you can move and attack. So that's how I view the first result, which is fallback fighting, where that opponent failed the morale. They're going to try to get away, but they're going to be as cautious as they can. They're still going to be aggressive. So they're going to take an attack. They're basically going to do the reverse of closing and attacking from less than 1 inch. They're going to take an attack and then move back 1 inch. And they'll still be facing the enemy. They'll still be combat ready. They're not giving up that free attack, but they're trying to start to move away. They're trying to put distance between themselves and their enemy, but they are taking a strike. So fallback fighting, you take your strike, you move back 1 inch. So that middle result of those three, between fallback fighting and fleeing and panic, where you disengage and retreat, I haven't found anything specific in the rules to back up what I'm saying, but I'm implying kind of from those other two results. So if you fall back fighting, you're taking your attack and you're retreating that 1 inch that you can retreat, that you can move even when you attack. You can attack and then move that 1 inch. With the fleeing and panic, you're turning and running, but you're giving them a free attack. With disengaging and retreating, disengaging to me means you're doing it in a way that doesn't give them that free attack, but you're not falling back fighting, so you're not taking your strike. So the way I've interpreted this, the way I've been using it in my game, is you're using your melee attack to essentially be on the defensive, so they don't get an opening while you move away and retreat, but you're going to be able to move farther than 1 inch. So I have arbitrarily chosen half your movement. You're using your attack to your combination of your attack and half your movement to not let your opponent get a free shot at you, and that leaves you the rest of your movement to move away. But you're still being cautious, and you're not just turning your back on them, so if they do renew their attack, you're not caught from behind. So that's the way I adjudicate that middle result, disengage and retreat. You're not attacking, and you're moving back half your movement with hopes to get opening, and basically you're hoping to gain initiative in the next round so that you can move first and you can move your full movement away. And then, of course, the fourth result is surrender, and surrender is surrender. The way I've been kind of executing that on the mechanic is, if it happens in the middle of a round, then the opponent is already, if they're already they're already attacking you. They're already committed to what they're doing. At the beginning of a round, I'm having both sides figure out what both sides are going to do, and they are committed to those actions at that point. There's not, well, let's see what the results are, and then we'll change it. That you see and hear in a lot of combats, where one person takes their turn, and then that changes what the other person was going to do. It goes more along with the idea of declaring attacks at the beginning of the round before initiative is rolled. So if a group, and I do morale at the beginning of your part of combat, each group's part of combat. So if you have a round of combat and then you roll the dice for initiative, if that first group, because of what happened in the previous round, has to take a morale roll, they make that morale roll. And if they surrender, they'll try to surrender. But that second group, if they've already committed to attacking, they're going to commit some attacks before they are surrendered. And in the same way, if the second group, the group that loses initiative, has taken a morale roll, they'll take a roll before they commit their actions as well. So it could be a situation where the first group wins initiative, the second group is going to take a morale roll, but the first group doesn't know that, so they do their attacks anyway, and that could even make the morale situation worse. So there's the potential for people surrendering, being slaughtered as they're surrendering simply because of the circumstances of initiative and what actions the opponent was taking. So that was supposed to be a brief overview, and it went over 15 minutes. So I hope it was somewhat informative, gave you some thoughts into my thought process. In the upcoming combat, I did kind of screw up the way I did morale. I remembered the adjustment for losing to morale score for losing your friends, but I didn't remember the adjustment for killing the enemies, other than the adjustment to the morale die roll itself. But I don't think it affected the outcome any, so I'm not worried about it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on morale in AD&D, or in other versions of D&D, or in game systems in general, and war games. What kind of morale mechanics have you seen and used, and what do you find most useful? And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. When last we left off, a group of heavy cavalry who were keeping watch sort of on the interior of the river keep, looking for any creatures coming up from the lower levels, had encountered a party of third level characters. This party proved to be pretty miffed from whatever they've been doing in the dungeon, and so had chosen to attack. The party consists of 2 fighters, a cleric, a magic user, and 5 men-at-arms. In this case, when I rolled those up, I got a longbowman, 2 heavy crossbowmen, a heavy hobilar, which is a troop type that goes into battle mounted but then dismounts to fight, and a sergeant, which is essentially a first level fighter. The sergeant, fighters, and cleric are clad in plate mail with shield. The other men-at-arms are wearing chainmail, and the heavy hobilar has a shield as well. The magic user doesn't have any type of armor or weapon or protective magic item. The cleric has a buckler +1. One of the fighters has a large shield -1 missile attractor. That same fighter also has a short sword, magical short sword, but won't be using it in this battle because all of the heavy cavalry are also wearing plate mail and shield, and so he will elect, along with the fighter and the cleric, to utilize footman flails to give them a better weapon versus armor adjustment. The sergeant and heavy hobilar are armed with long swords, and the hobilar and all the bowmen are equipped with spears as well to allow them to fight from back ranks. The magic user has a dagger, but he probably won't be using it in the battle because he also has a wand of magic missiles. He also has a cube of force, and he has memorized 2 charm person spells as well as invisibility. The cleric has memorized 2 cure light wound spells, bless, protection from evil, hold person, silence 15-foot radius, and slow poison. On the other side, all the heavy cavalry, as I mentioned, are in plate mail and shield, and the captain that is with them has magical splint mail and a magical shield. In combat, the fighters will be able to attack as many times as their level when they're attacking the regular cavalry, and the captain on the other side will be able, when he's attacking the men-at-arms, to be able to attack as many times as his level. The 2 fighters will be hitting on 14s on the cavalrymen, and at 19 on the captain. The cleric at 16 on the cavalry and 20 on the captain, and all of the men-at-arms will have to roll a 20 to hit, unless, of course, they get behind somebody. On the other side, the cavalrymen against those that are wearing the plate mail shield will need a 20 to hit. Against the heavy hobilar, when it's wielding its shield as well as chainmail, they'll need a 17, and against the other men-at-arms, they will need 16s. And against the magic user, they'll need an 11. The captain will need 13 to hit the cleric and one of the fighters, 11 to hit the other fighter, a 13 to hit the sergeant, a 9 to hit the hobilar when he has his shield equipped, an 8 to hit the other hirelings, and a 0, well, theoretically a 0 to hit a magic user, but a 1 is always a miss. So now we need to determine the conditions that the combat is starting. So we'll start by rolling for surprise. Is the party of characters surprised? On a 2, they are. And is the cavalryman group surprised? On a 3, they are not. So now we'll go to encounter distance. Because at least one party was surprised, it will either be 1 inch or 3 inch distance, so 10 feet or 30 feet. So roll a d6, high, low, roll a 6. So it's a 30-foot distance. And the question is, did this encounter take place in a hallway, or did it take place in a room, with the party spilling out into the room just as the cavalry got there as well? So again, we'll do high, low. Low will be a hallway, and we rolled a 5. So it's going to be in a room. The party of characters would be marching in with the 2 fighters and the cleric in the front, and with the sergeant, hobilar, and magic user in the second row, with the magic user in the middle, and then the 2 heavy crossbowmen and the longbowmen will be in the back. The hobilar will have been marching with his spear so that he could operate from the second rank, and he would not have his shield equipped at that moment. So essentially, the 2 groups have basically come into the room at the same time. The magic user will be not accessible to anyone because he's in the middle of the formation. Otherwise, they'll be able to get to all of the group one way or another. So during the first round of surprise segments, the captain and 2 of the cavalrymen will charge the front rank while the others work their way around. And then during the second round of surprise, they'll all will be able to attack, except for, well, one of the cavalrymen will have to serve as a double up, probably on one of the front row guys. So the captain charges in. Let's see which target he ends up with. 1 or 2, it'll be the cleric. 3 or 4, or 5 or 6 will be one of the fighters. And a 6, he is on one of the fighters. Going in the order I've got them listed in, it'll be the fighter with the large shield -1. But that fighter does have otherwise some other factors that give him an overall armor class of 0. So this is the one that it will take a 13 to hit. But with the charging bonus +2 for this roll, he'll need just an 11. And he rolled a 10, so he came up short. So the next attacker will be attacking one of the other fighter, one of the cavalrymen, and he rolled a 3. He did not hit. And then the one attacking the cleric rolls an 11. That's not good enough. And then we'll say the cleric was in the middle, so one of the fighters will be doubled up. So 1, 2, or 3, it'll be the one that we'll say that the cavalryman will double up the fighter that is not being attacked by the captain. Rolls a 17, and that's not good enough, even with the charge bonus. And I just realized that after saying that the captain had a charge bonus, I didn't factor it in, so that 10 would have become a 12, and that would have been good enough. No, it's still short, because he needed 13. Okay, never mind. Anyway, so that's the end of the first surprise segment. Second surprise segment, the captain rolls 17, so that is good enough to hit, and he is attacking he has a magical battle axe, so he's going to attack with that battle axe, and that's going to be, let's see if I roll him here, I'll get a little more room, and he only rolls a 1, but it's a +2 battle axe, so that's 2, and he has a +4 on damage because of strength bonus, so he does a total of 7 points of damage. That fighter started off with 25, so that knocks him down to 19. So now, cavalryman attacks the other fighter, and rolls a 17. That's still not good enough. Needs a 20 to hit. The fighter attacking the cleric rolls a 19. That is just shy. And the other fighter attacking the first fighter rolls a 9. So now we have the fighter attacking the heavy hobilar needing a 16 since the Hobble's shield is not equipped, and rolls a 19. So he's attacking with a longsword. So that's going to be D8 and rolls a 3, which cuts the Hobble's hit points in half. The cavalryman attacking the sergeant. The sergeant is still in plate mail and shield, therefore he needs a 20 to hit and rolls a 9. Attacking the one attacking one of the heavy crossbowmen needs a 16 or better. 13. Attacking the longbowman, 16 or better. 16. And with a D8, rolls a 6, and that's going to kill the longbowman, who only had 5 hit points. And then the attack on the last heavy crossbowman is a 3. So that is also a miss. So now we move on to initiative. So the party of characters rolls a 4. The cavalry group rolls a 6. So the cavalry group gets to go again. The captain attacking rolls a 2. That's a miss. The attacking the fighter, a 1. That's a miss. The other one attacking that same fighter, 16. That's a miss. Attacking the cleric, 17. That's a miss. Attacking the heavy hobelar, 9. That is a miss. Attacking the sergeant, 15. That's a miss. Attacking the heavy crossbowman, 16. That is a hit. So the heavy crossbowman takes 5 points of damage, and that's all that he had. So that one is dead. The other heavy crossbowman, 6. That's a miss. Now, the one that was attacking the longbowman can move in and attack the magic user. Needs an 11 or better and gets a 12. So that is going to be 7 points of damage on the magic user. That will knock the magic user down to 5 points left. That magic user rolled good hit points. All right, now it is time for the other group to strike back. The clerk's bless won't have any effect now because it doesn't affect people already involved in melee. Everybody's involved in melee. So the clerk will attempt to cast Hold Person on the 3 fighters, on the 2 fighters and the captain directly in front of them. That will require saving throw. The saving throws for the cavalrymen are 19, and for the captain, it will be an 11. One cavalryman is held. Both cavalrymen are held, but the captain rolls a 19 and continues fighting. The magic user will cast Charm Person on the cavalryman that's attacking them, and with a 13, cavalryman does not save, and so therefore is charmed. The fighters, the fighter that's being confronted by the captain attacks, needing a 19 to hit the captain, and rolls a 7. The other fighter is attacking the 2 cavalrymen that were attacking him. One of them is held and automatically is hit and receives maximum damage and is killed. The other one he attacks needing a 14 or better to hit. He rolls a 16, so that is a hit, and it's a 2 to 7 points of damage, so rolling a d6 and adding 1. He does 2 points of damage, and then he gets one more attack because he's a 3rd level fighter attacking less than 1 hit die creatures. And this one he rolls a 14 also, which is a hit. And that ends that character, that cavalryman. So now it's each side has killed 2 of the others. Now the sergeant counterattacks against his opponent, needing a 20 to hit. And lo and behold, gets a 20. So he's wielding a longsword. He does 3 points of damage. So that cavalryman is still standing. Heavy crossbow attacks, rolls a 6. The hobelar rolls, gets an 18, which is not good enough to hit. So now we move to the next round and roll initiative. The party rolls a 3. The cavalry group rolls another 6. The captain attacks and rolls a 1. The cavalryman attacking the heavy hovelar rolls a 17. That is a hit. And he's going to be doing 3 points of damage. That's enough to kill the hobelar. Now the one attacking the crossbowman rolls. Oh, that's damage dice. That's not d20. Let's try that again. That's also a 17 and does 7 points of damage, and that kills the other heavy crossbowman. Now the one attacking the sergeant, he's going to need a 20 to hit and rolls an 18, so he comes up short. The magic user uses his influence on the charmed cavalryman to try to convince him to attack his fellow cavalryman. I'm going to give it a 50-50 chance of working, of him convincing him that that's the only way he will survive. And with 56%, he will do it. So he attacks. He'll need a 20 to hit. He does not hit him. He only rolled a 3, so even giving an advantage for surprise of this attack, he wouldn't have hit. So now we move to the cleric, who attacks the held cavalryman in front of him, and that ends that cavalryman. And now the fighter, who killed 2 cavalrymen last time, moves over to engage the one that had dispatched the heavy crossbowman, and he attacks with a 12 that he just misses, another attack, a 13 that just misses, and then finally a third attack, a 3 that just misses. So he's clanging off the armor and shield of that cavalryman. And then finally the fighter engaged with the captain, rolls a 12 and misses as well. So we move on to the next round of combat. The party rolls a 2. The cavalry rolls a 3. So once again, the cavalry goes first. So before I do anything else, at this point, I need to roll some morale rolls, because each side has lost more than 25% of its complement. The party has lost most of its men at arms, except for the sergeant, and the cavalrymen have lost 3 of their number, and both sides started with only 9 to begin with. So because of the high number of hit dice on the field, each group started with morale higher than 100%. Currently, the characters party stands at 124% and the cavalry at 113. But there's going to be bonuses to the die roll. This is a roll under mechanics. You're going to roll under the number. This is a roll. But there are bonuses to the die roll for each party. It's going to be plus 5% because their 25% have died or been eliminated, which would include the charmed one. And then there's an additional plus 10% for each friend killed, but there's also a minus 10% for each enemy slain. So this may be academic, actually, because it's actually going to be a negative. So that's a net negative 5% to the roll for the heavy cavalry, and so they can't possibly roll over 113. And the party, let's see, they'll be plus 15%, but they can't roll over 124. So really, they automatically pass morale. So it's a morale check of sorts. It didn't really mean anything, or there was no chance of failing. So moving on. Party rolls a 2 on initiative, and the cavalry roll a 3. So the cavalry get to go again. So first we'll go with the 2 who are attacking the fighter in the back that had previously dispatched the 2 heavy crossbowmen. One rolls a 6, and one rolls a 20. So he will get to do some damage here to this fighter. And he does 2 points of damage, which knocks that fighter down to 9. Now the one that was attacking the sergeant rolls an 8. And the one that is engaged with his fellow cavalryman who has been charmed rolls a 20. And so he fells his fellow cavalryman. And we're going to say he doesn't know what's going on, so he's actually inflicting temporary damage, but it knocked him unconscious. So he is down, but not dead. So now that leaves us with just the captain attacking the fighter in front of him. He rolls a 16. That is a hit, and so he rolls for damage. And that is a 6 plus 2 for the battle axe plus 4 for strength. It's 12. That knocks that fighter down by 12 points to 7. So now the fighter strikes back at the captain. He rolls a 5. The cleric sees that his fellow is in some trouble and uses a Cure Light Wound spell for a whopping 1 point increase. The other fighter attacks the two cavalrymen attacking him. He rolls a 6. He rolls a 9. And he rolls a 16, which is a hit. And so he will do 2 plus 1, 3 points of damage to that cavalryman. And now the sergeant rolls against the cavalryman in front of him. He rolls a 16. That's not good enough. These two guys are going to be slugging out for a while if they each need 20s to hit each other. And now the magic user attacks the cavalryman that just subdued his fellow who had been charmed with a magic missile. And he's going to do 1 plus 1 points of damage. So that guy is still standing. So in that round, nobody went down. So there's no need for a morale check, a further morale check. So we're going to roll initiative again. And the party rolls a 1, and the cavalry rolls a 1. So these will be simultaneous attacks. So let's do the party side first, since they've been second in all these others. So the magic user uses his wand again, and it doesn't really matter what he rolls because that's going to be enough to kill the guy in front of him, although he will get a strike back. And now the fighter attacks the 2 in front of him. A 15, that's a hit. That'll be enough to kill 1. An 18, that's a hit, and that will do 4 points of damage, so that's enough to kill the other one. So that's going to be 2 more cavalry dead. And then the sergeant attacks the one in front of him and rolls a 5. And then the fighter on the captain rolls a 3, and the cleric rolls against that as well, and he rolls a 16, and that's not good enough either. But now we'll go ahead and do the downed guys first. The attackers on the fighter, an 11 and a 20. All right, so doing some damage before they go down. It's going to be 6 points of damage, but that fighter is still standing after he eliminated both those guys. And then the one that was at the magic user, he would need an 11 or better here, and he rolls a 20. So he's going to do some damage. He does 8 points of damage, so the magic user goes down as well. So they annihilate each other mutually, getting blasted to death with a magic missile just as the magic user falls. So then now that gives us the one that is attacking the sergeant, and he rolls a 20. Oh, getting a lot of 20s here all of a sudden. And so he does 5 points of damage, so the sergeant goes down. And then finally, the captain attacking the fighter in front of him, he rolls a 4 and misses. So after that mutually damaging round, both sides are down to less than 50% of their party, so we're going to do another morale check for each side. So this check will be at plus 15% for being 50% of the party eliminated or slain. 6 of the cavalrymen are down. 6 are killed. 1 has been knocked unconscious. And the party has lost all 5 of their men-at-arms plus their magic users. So that's 6 to 6. So there's no negative or positive for either group there. So it's going to be a straight roll at plus 15%. The party group is down to 102%, and the cavalry group is down to 98%. So for the party, they roll 6% plus 15 is well below 102. And for the cavalry, they roll 17 plus 15% is 33, which is below 98. So both groups go on. So we go to initiative again. For the party, a 1. For the cavalry, a 3. So we're down to the captain and 1 upright cavalry member against 2 fighters and a cleric. So the captain attacks the fighter in front of him, and he rolls a 16, and that's good enough. And he has his battle axe, and this would be a plus 6 here. And he rolls a 2, which is just good enough because with that healing gate, it put that fighter up to 8, so that knocks out that fighter. And now the other cavalryman moves over to the other fighter and attacks. He rolls a 19, which is not good enough. He needs a 20, and that's it for that side. So now the fighter strikes back at the cavalryman. He rolls a 6 and misses. The cleric attacks the captain. He rolls a 2 and misses. So back to the initiative. The party rolls a 6. The cavalry rolls a 3. So the party wins for the first time this combat, I believe. So the fighter against the cavalryman rolls a 12. That's not quite good enough. The cleric against the captain rolls a 10. Oh, the fighter deserved more attacks. So he shorted him last time. So let's go back to that. A 4, an 8 for last time. And then for this time, a 9 and a 5. So still not connecting despite a lot of swings. The cleric, did he miss? Well, we'll roll again. He rolls a 12. He doesn't hit. All right, so now the cavalryman attacking the fighter rolls an 8. The captain against the cleric rolls a 10. Those are misses. So now I think they're getting worn down here. All right, so the party, initiative 2, the cavalry, a 6. The captain against the cleric rolls a 13. Let's see here. 13 is good enough to hit the cleric. He rolls 6 plus 6 total, gives him 12 points of damage. That knocks the cleric down to 9. The cavalryman against the fighter rolls a 7. The fighter back against the cavalryman rolls an 11, 4, and a 3. The cleric against the captain rolls a 15. Is that good enough for the... Nope. He needs a 20. All right. Initiative again. The party, 4. The cavalry, a 1. Cleric versus captain, 10. Fighter versus cavalryman, an 8. And a 17. That's a hit. And that's good enough because that cavalryman was down to 1. So he is gone. So now we go to the captain attacking the cleric. Rolls a 3. So now the captain is by himself against the 2 remaining members of the party. So initiative, the party, a 2. The captain, a 1. The cleric attacks, an 8. The fighter comes over and attacks, a 1. The captain attacks the cleric, a 16. That is good enough to hit the cleric, and he rolls 3 points of damage, plus 6 is 9. That's just enough to knock out the cleric. So the fighter is going to take a swipe at the captain, and with a 14, that is not good enough. He also needs a 19 to hit the captain. All right, so now the cleric had the highest charisma of the whole group. He had 18 charisma. I consider him the leader. So since the leader went down, we're going to do another morale check here. So with the leader going down, that's a plus 30% on the die roll. The cavalry has lost 7. Call it 8 because that other one is on the ground and the captain has no way of knowing if he's alive or dead. And as does the fighter that's still standing. So it's 8-8 in terms of losses. So there's no plus or minus there. So it's going to be plus 30% to the die roll. The fighter, the morale score is 72%. So he needs to roll at least 57% to keep fighting. He rolls a 62. So he keeps fighting. So another round. The fighter, a 3. The captain, a 2. Fighter rolls, gets an 18. That's not quite good enough. So now the captain attacks. He gets a 10. That's not good enough. All right. And this is the fighter. He just needs an 11 to hit, so he was just short. So, initiative. Fighter, 1. Captain, 5. The captain rolls an 8. The fighter rolls a 2. Initiative. Fighter, 5. Captain, 4. The fighter, a 12. The captain, a 2. Initiative. Fighter, 5. Captain, 4. The fighter, a 12. The captain, an 18. And that's good enough. The fighter goes down. So after a long and drawn-out battle, 9 of the cavalry are down, and the captain is still standing. There's 1 cavalryman left alive, the one that had been charmed and knocked unconscious by his fellow. And I should have been keeping track of the rounds because I was going to have the alarm to sort of bring in other groups that are also still residing in this keep. It was going to take them about a turn or so to get there, and I don't think it went. If it went longer than 10, it was just barely 10. So they probably arrived just as the captain deals with this last member of this party. But the victory did come at a terrible cost because this were probably the heaviest group of hitters overall of the soldiers stationed at this location. And what they don't know, but I do, is that the encounter for tomorrow is not an encounter from within the dungeon. It's an encounter from without the dungeon, and it is Hill Giants. So we're going to have to see how that shapes up next time. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voice message on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/phantomthoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.